on May 25th, 2020, 8 minutes and 46 seconds of me witnessing George Floyd with a knee on his neck, murdered. And that was so traumatizing for me that I felt anguish, I felt anger, I felt bitterness. I mean, all the negative emotions that I could, and I could not believe my eyes. And of course, that threw me into remembering all of the different things that I've been through. And also in the space of like, you know what? That could be my brother. That can be my husband. That can be my son. That can be my uncle. That can be my father. I mean, that can be somebody in my family, one of my brothers. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I am your host, Coach Charlene, and today, in celebration of my 1 year, I am going to do my story. Yes, my story. I have given bits and pieces of my story throughout my interviews, and I thought today, as we close out our year celebration, that I would really just unpack that moment that I believe that chose me and called me into it. I have spoke about this moment several times before, but I wanted to kind of unpack my story a little bit and tell you a little bit more about my passion and what drove me to where I am today. First of all, I'd like to say I'm very honored to be where I am. I'm a nurse leader. I'm a Curitas coach. I'm a heart math trainer. I'm a healing circle facilitator. I'm a speaker. I'm a author. I am a change agent. Yes, I can do that. I can say that proudly that I have worked very hard to be where I am. I have 30 years under my belt in the nursing profession, and it has definitely been a journey. I believe that where I am today is a direct result of what I have gone through to get me to where I am today. And that's what's really powerful about our life and our stories. And as you know, on this particular podcast, I like to interview change agents and trailblazers that dare to dream, that dare to disrupt systems. But most importantly, I love having compassionate, courageous conversation. And I put emphasis on courageous because sometimes the things that call us into are not comfortable at all. Matter of fact, when I was called into this moment in 2020, when we unfortunately witnessed the murder of George Floyd, may he rest in peace. When we witnessed that, that was my moment to speak up. Now, let's not get it twisted. There have been several Black and brown people that have died unjustly before that. And for some reason, something shifted on the inside of me and caused me to say, I will no longer stay silent. I was dealing with this moment, and I went into prayer, and I explained that to you guys on the few other segments that I had. And I am a woman of prayer. So I went into prayer, and I remember hearing the words, what you do in this moment will determine your destiny and dictate your future. And so I knew that at that moment that I had to move from the frustration, from the anger, from the anguish that I was experiencing because of that moment into action and impact. And that's exactly what I decided to do. I decided that I was going to speak up because I have over 30 years of my journey. And actually beyond that, I am 57 years old, and my life has been a journey. Your life has been a journey. And that's why stories are so powerful. And so I would love for you to tap into the power of your story. I decided in that moment, during the global pandemic, during our own personal pandemic, that I was going to respond to my moment. And I'm so thankful that I responded in the midst of the pain in the midst of the frustration, in the midst of the uncertainty, I say, I am going to make a difference with this, my voice. My voice will resonate wherever it decides to go. My voice will respond and will resound into the earth so that it can impact those that it was designed to impact. And so why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because there is so much power in telling stories. And we know that there's research out there that says that you can remember 20% more just from a story. And so that actually was intuitively when we witnessed that, I began to start getting ideas, innovation of how I was going to contribute to this moment because I believe that I was called to this moment. I was chosen for this moment. Then I began to start saying, okay, so now what? How do I impact those that are around me and beyond? And it all started with my story. For 20 years, I stayed silent and said nothing as I witnessed injustice. I witnessed degradation. I've witnessed even, several scenarios of myself being pressed. I call it shrink to fit. So I witnessed that several times, but I did not have the confidence. I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the voice to really speak up like I should have because I did not feel like I would be supported in me speaking up. And so that's why I probably stay silent. I'm sure in my head, I start thinking about, okay, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get fired. I need this job, yada, yada, yada. You know the story. You know the drill of how we do what we do, and to have those excuses there so that we can stay comfortable. I heard Lisa Nichols say it one time. I think her grandma told her this, and she said, baby, convenience and conviction cannot stay on the same block. And so when she said that, that actually blew up on the inside of me, because if you think that you're going to stay comfortable and have conversations, you're sadly mistaken. These type of conversations on racism take you all the way in, and it is going to challenge every ounce of who you are because it's designed to do so. We have a systemic problem here in our world, and we need to do something about it. And you can do something where you are. And so that's what I say. I say, I'm going to do something where I am currently. And so I love telling stories. I used story as a transformational way for people to be able to share their story. For me, so that I could tell you where I am at this particular moment. And stories are so powerful because they do affect our behavior and our emotions. And it actually moves the audience to action. Many times when you hear a story, you're very moved with compassion and even empathy for those that can relate. I think it's really powerful because I don't know where you've been and you don't know where I've been. But everything that I've been through has gotten me to the moment that I am right now. And so some of those moments that we deal with are jarring. They're not good. They're hurtful. They're painful. They're traumatizing. But when we can leverage our story, we can see change happen. And that's exactly what I did. So I began to start doing listening sessions and just all type of things, any ways that I could connect with another person. And it has benefited so much fruit, so much love, so much joy, so much meaning. And I'm so excited about that. So that's why I'm going to be sharing my story with you on tonight or today, wherever you are. But I have a quote that I wanted to share with you first. And it says, inside each of us is a natural born storyteller waiting to be released. And that's by Robin Moore, my dear friend. Name was Robin Moore that I grew up in high school with. But this particular quote I found, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good because I had a story. It was waiting to be released, but I did not have the courage. I did not have the confidence. I did not have my voice at the time. So I did not release it so that it can impact those that it was destined to impact. And so there's another quote, through the art of storytelling, we can preserve our heritage, educate our future generation, and inspire change. I have inspired change and inspiration because I began to share my story. So let's start with some of my stories. I'm going to tell you 3 of my stories in particular that I experienced. And they definitely had to do with racism through the journey. And it's not a secret that there's a very small percentage of nurse leaders um, in different spots in our healthcare system. I'm speaking to that because that's where I am. And since I've started working, I've always been in the minority. Regardless, I'm always in the minority. I'll be like the only one or one or two that's in the masses. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that I can be the example and I can contribute. But I want to tell you about how this happened. And I'm going to go way back because I think I have to start down with me being young. When I was a child, I wanted to be, you know how we were like, okay, I want to be this when I grow up. So I wanted to be a flight attendant or a nurse. And obviously a nurse won out. And I think I wanted to be a nurse because I used to see my mom dress in her little uniform. So my mom, she was a caretaker. I believe that she was like an LVN. Like, I don't know the language back then, but she used to go take care of people. And I so admired her for her heart to care for other people. And I think that's really what gave me that little first, push of wanting to be a nurse. And so at the age of 17 and a half, I knew that we didn't have any money for school. Now, I did exceptionally well in school. I pretty much got A's and B's throughout my whole school. I mean, I actually only missed probably 4 days and out of my whole 12 years of education. And the only reason I missed those 4 days was because I had to have my appendix taken out, which I was traumatized for being absent. And so that was just the kind of person that I was and that I am. I like to be committed and to stick with things. And so I missed school. I'm traumatized by that. I finished school. I did extremely well. I had pretty much all A's and B's throughout my whole tenure of school. And I graduated number 8 in my class. And that was amazing. I was always like excelling. I always wanted to do a great job at whatever it was that I was doing. And so, of course, you start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? And I start looking around and I was like, man, I want to do something. I want to go do something. You know how it is when you're 17, 18, you're starting to think about your career decisions and what you're going to do. And if you don't have the money, if you have to start thinking strategically, okay, how can I get this done in the midst of it? And so I was walking to the mall one day and I saw a sign and it said $25,000 Army College Fund. And I was like, oh my God, that would be awesome. That would take the pressure off of my parents. And then I can go live my dream. And so guess what? I'm 17 and a half. I go in, I talk to the recruiter. And of course, they're going to recruit me. I have no idea, like literally what I'm doing. Or did I? I may have known. See, I think intuitively, I knew that this was something that I had to do to get me out of where I was. And so I went forth and I signed up for they had an early entry program. So I filled out and went back to school, kind of sort of forgot about it, to tell you the truth. But, a few days before it was time for me to go, I had to start going to get my physical and doing all this other stuff. And that's when the reality hit me that, like, literally, I had never been away from home at all. But here I am, this 18-year-old, never been away from home, getting ready to go into the United States Army. First of all, okay, Charlene, you need to tell your parents what you just did. And so I had a chance to talk to them. And of course, they were kind of devastated, sad, because I didn't really talk to them about it. It was just I just intuitively just did it. And my dad, he was very proud because, it's a good thing to want to go into the military, but that attachment that, mothers and daughters and kids have is really challenging. So to know that her baby was getting ready to go by herself, she's never been by herself. Is she prepared to be by herself? I'm sure all of those questions arose for her. But I went off 18, headed out to the Presidio. Actually, I went to boot camp and went through all of that, did my training in Fort Sam Houston, and then landed in the Presidio of California. And that's how I was introduced to California. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like super amazing. Because I think I put on there that I wanted to do California or Hawaii. And so here I am in California. So I finished up about 2.5 years of service. And then when I got out, I decided that I was going to challenge the board. So I was a nursing assistant for a long period of time as I was doing my prereqs, because I decided to go ahead and get my bachelor's in nursing. And so I did that. But here's where the story begins. One of my last semesters in nursing school, early on, I was taking care of a patient. And one of my things that for patients, I'm kind of like my mom, where I love to care for people. I love to make people look pretty. And especially if their family's coming, and I want my patients to look like they're unkept. So it was a big deal to me to make sure that I combed her hair and have her sitting up and looking beautiful when her family came. So I'm cleaning this lady up and, just doing a great job doing that. And all of a sudden, as I get to her shoulders, she grabbed me by my wrist. I mean, her fingernails were so long and sharp, and it literally felt like I was getting stabbed. And she looked me in the eye and she said, "Get your hands off of me, you." And she used the N word. Yes, she did use the N word. Now, can you imagine? I'm young, I'm excited, like totally it was only 3 Black nursing students in the program that I went to out of many. I'm here by myself. This lady staring me at the face. I'm trying to do a good deed, cleaning her up to make her beautiful. And she says, "Get your hands off of me." And she used the N word. Now, let me tell you some thought process that was going on in my mind. First thought, I'm being real, being honest. I need to put that pillow over her head. No, she didn't. Second thought, that could be your mom. The second thought, love beyond. I kept hearing things run through my thoughts because my mom and my dad taught me how to love beyond an individual. And in that particular moment, although I was angry and I wanted to just like totally do something because it was so hurtful and her racism just shone through what she was doing, that I wanted to do something, because yes, your first initial reaction, but I'm so thankful that my parents taught me about the love of God, because I was able to love her beyond that racist comment, and which is challenging. It was very challenging. So don't get me wrong. I remember it as if it had just happened. That's how traumatizing it was. But I decided to not to allow that to define who I am. And so instead of me using it to degrade me, I used it to propel me like an eagle. And so finished getting her cleaned up. I finished doing my part. I finished getting her ready for her family, and that the rest was history. Now, was that gone? No, it was not. It was not gone. I carried that thing for a long time, and it didn't impact me as far as me moving forward doing my nursing. I continued to make strides and to do the things that I had in my heart to do, and that was to become a nurse. And so, okay, I'm all done with nursing school. I get a new job. Very excited about this because, it's really hard for new graduates to get new jobs a lot of times. You've heard that over and over. And so I get to my first assignment. I get to be in this new graduate program. I'm extremely excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like super amazing. And so I get to my unit the first day. Okay, let me just explain to you what I had on first. I'm an official nurse. Oh my God, this is super exciting. So of course I wanted to go get my white clogs, my white pants, and my white scrub top. I had it all together and I had little sailboats on my scrub top. So looking pretty good, looking like a nurse. And so I get up to the unit, and all of a sudden, this blonde nurse, she turns around. I'm putting my stuff in the drawer, and she turns around and kind of looks at me, and she's like, who are you? Are you our housekeeper? And then she just like totally went about her business. Now, okay, y'all, the thoughts. The thoughts are flooding in. Like, I need to snatch that girl. I'm just being serious. I'm being honest, you guys. These are the thoughts that we think in our minds, which I had every right to want to react that way because of her insensitive comment. And I just continued to move on, to press on. And I recognized that there was absolutely minimal diversity there at that particular time. But that is my story. I continue to persevere. I continue to press in, made friends, enjoyed the short time that I was there, but I knew that it was time for me to move on. And so that was my greeting. That was welcome to our family, your first day of work. And no, I want to make sure that I preference this and say there's nothing wrong with being a housekeeper. But that right there was a direct assault and attack, and microaggression and all the other stuff of her true self coming out to a brand new employee coming. And so these are the things that we deal with, you guys. These are the type of things that you don't know about that we deal with. So I'm just sharing from my heart the different things that I've been through. Now, all of these things are happening. Now, I'm not mentioning everything. Those two are the two that I'm going to mention. And so they all have prepared me for what I was getting ready to face in 2020. In 2020, on May 25th, 2020, 8 minutes and 46 seconds of me witnessing George Floyd with a knee on his neck, murdered. And that was so traumatizing for me that I felt anguish, I felt anger, I felt bitterness. I mean, all the negative emotions that I could define began to surge through me and of course, with many other people of color to have to witness this. Now, normally I don't even watch the news. I don't even watch it because it's so negative and it will take you down if you continue to give your attention to it. So I just happened to be on vacation and I was kind of chilling out and I was just scrolling and then it popped up and I could not believe my eyes. And of course, that threw me into remembering all of the different things that I've been through. And also in the space of like, you know what? That could be my brother. That can be my husband. That can be my son. That can be my uncle. That can be my father. I mean, that can be somebody in my family, one of my brothers. That could be one of them. That is what's going on in my mind every time I see injustice happen with people of color in that way. And so that took me to prayer because there was nothing else that was giving me solace. And so I took it into prayer. And I remember the words after I came out of prayer that what you do in this moment will determine your destiny and dictate your future. And it was so profound that I had to write that down. I knew at that moment that I was going to have to move from the anger and the anguish to action and impact. And so that's where I really, truly began to start doing intuitively listening sessions, first of all, for those who were affected, which were my Black and brown brothers and sisters. And so I did a listening session for them. We were able to talk and share humanity and cry together and talk about how hurt we were and how insensitive others were in the workplace. And so that's why I decided to come up with this. I'll call it a model or a strategy. I'll call it a model or a strategy, but it was a way in which I decided to lead because of the different insensitivities that I was walking through in the organization. And this was the aware strategy. And the aware strategy really just was kind of like an acronym that I created to help me to ground myself and to give other people an opportunity to learn from this big event. I think that moment actually was a call for all of us, like literally all of us, to do something different. And the A was for acknowledge. Let's acknowledge that there is a problem. And see, this is how I structured my conversations. First of all, let's just acknowledge that this was wrong. Let's acknowledge that unfair treatment is wrong. Let's acknowledge that racism has no place at the bedside, but it's finding its way to the bedside and causing poor outcomes to our Black and brown people. So we have to acknowledge that first. And then I use the power of storytelling, walking a mile in my shoes. I know that you can't walk in my shoes and I can't walk in yours. I have enough to walk in with my own shoes, but I can pause and I can listen to another person's story to see where they were so that I can try to gain perspective and understand where they're coming from. I may not understand like literally what they experience, but we all have been in painful moments that have tried us, that have defeated us. But just listening authentically to another person's story is extremely powerful. And that is really the tool that I use because it does what the second aid says, and that is to address my own bias. Do I have bias? Do I have those racist thoughts circling through my mind? Because we all have bias. We all have it because we have a brain. And so that is what I kind of captured. And then respecting another person's voice and another person's story, allowing those that were affected to have a voice to say how they feel, because you have to be able to allow that expression to take place so that you can share my humanity. You may not know what I'm going through right now, but I want you to know that this is painful and this may be affecting how I'm leading, how I'm caring, how I'm doing what I'm doing. So let's pause for a moment and let's recognize that my house is on fire and that I need some help. I need some support. And then the other one is to educate yourself and to educate others if you're called to do that. That is exactly what I did. I kind of used that aware approach to deal with all of the different things that I had to deal with. I responded to my destiny moment, to this moment, in this way so that I can begin to start having those courageous, compassionate conversations. Were the conversations easy? No, they were not. But I dared to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable because my voice had to be listened to. My voice had to be found. I had to find it first, and then I was able to release it. And I think that's what's important. When you find your voice and then you release it to your audience, that's where the impact comes. And so as we were experiencing this traumatic event as a society, as a world, it was time for us to do something in that moment. And what I decided to do at that moment is to share my story. I decided to help out my allies that were really struggling with having the conversations. I began to start doing little videos for them, for their teams, having consults with different people to let them know my perspective, because my perspective is my perspective. This is my lived experience, and I was willing to share it. I was willing to share it because I have gotten to a place of healing, I believe, because of all of the different things that I've dealt with in the past that had to do with this topic. I built my resilience within that. So I was able to talk about it. I can talk to you about it from a healed place versus from a place of trauma. And so that was the difference. And that's why I believe that it was time for me to speak up and to begin to start talking about this, even in the midst of everybody else being uncomfortable. We have to find out what our voice is intended to do? What is your voice intended to do? What is your message for? What are you going to do because this moment chose literally all of us? What did you do differently? Did you stay the same? Did you engage in conversations? Did you begin to start being equitable with your friends and with your decisions that you're making? Did you begin to speak up for someone that was marginalized? What did you do when this moment came up? And so that is the three stories that I'm willing to share with you. And I really share it from a place of love, because I truly believe that, just like with my first scenario with the Caucasian woman that called me the N word, I loved her beyond her racist attitude, her racist person. Regardless, I had to learn how to love her beyond that, because you do not want to be a prisoner of what other people tell you or the words that people speak into your life. You do not want to be a prisoner in that. I know several people that they have allowed words to cause them to be imprisoned by the particular words that were spoken into their lives. You have power over that. You have the power to say, no, I am not receiving that. I heard that, but I bounced that off of my shield. And so I hope you enjoyed that story. I am not done, because I want to tell you part 2 of that story in my next segment. So I'm going to go into another thing that I've learned that really helped me to move beyond those barriers, those negative events that happen in our lives. So I'll see you over at the next episode. I'm going to finish up my story. And thank you so much for joining.